Sánchez rejected a NATO proposal to increase defense spending to 5% of GDP. The proposal is due to be announced next week at the NATO Leaders Summit in The Hague. The Spanish premier called the proposal unreasonable. In a letter sent to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, Sánchez stated that his country cannot commit to any spending targets in terms of GDP. Any agreement to adopt a new spending guideline must be made with the consensus of all 32 NATO member countries. Sánchez's decision risks derailing next week's summit, which U.S. President Donald Trump is set to attend. Trump has on numerous occasions threatened to pull the U.S. out of NATO if members don't increase defense spending to at least 5%. Spain is the lowest spender on defense in the entire alliance, with last year's defense expenditure totaling less than 2% of GDP. And NATO officials said on Thursday that discussions between allies are ongoing about a potential new spending plan.
Sánchez says no. Spain rejects NATO's 5% GDP spending demand. Spain was the lowest spender in the transatlantic alliance last year, directing less than 2% of its GDP on defense expenditure. Spain rejected a NATO proposal to spend 5% of gross domestic product on defense needs that's due to be announced next week, calling it unreasonable. Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez, in a letter sent on Thursday to NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte, said that Spain cannot commit to a specific spending target in terms of GDP at next week's NATO summit in The Hague. Any agreement to adopt a new spending guideline must be made with the consensus of all 32 NATO member states, so Sánchez's decision risks derailing next week's summit, which US President Donald Trump is due to attend, and creating a last-minute shakeup that could have lingering repercussions. Most US allies in NATO on track to endorse Trump's demand that they invest 5% of GDP on their defense and military needs. In early June, Sweden and the Netherlands said that they aim to meet the new target. A NATO official said on Thursday that discussions between allies were ongoing about a new defense spending plan. For Spain, committing to a 5% target would not only be unreasonable, but also counterproductive, as it would move Spain away from optimal spending, and it would hinder the EU's ongoing efforts to strengthen its security and defense ecosystem, Sánchez wrote in the letter that was seen by the Associated Press. Spain was the lowest spender in the transatlantic alliance last year, directing less than 2% of its GDP on defense expenditure. Sánchez said in April that the government would raise defense spending by €10.5 billion in 2025 to reach NATO's previous target of 2% of GDP. On Thursday, Sánchez called for a more flexible formula in relation to a new spending target, one that either made it optional or left Spain out of its application. Sánchez wrote that his country is fully committed to NATO, but that meeting a 5% target would be incompatible with our welfare state and our world vision. He said that doing so would require cutting public services and scaling back other spending, including toward the green transition. Instead, Spain will need to spend 0.1% of GDP to meet the Spanish military's estimated defense needs, Sánchez said. Corruption scandals, domestic corruption scandals that have ensnared Sánchez's inner circle and family members have put the Spanish leader under increasing pressure to call an early election, even among some of his allies. Increased military spending is also unpopular among some of Sánchez's coalition partners. In April, when Sánchez announced that Spain would reach NATO's previous 2% spending target, the move angered some coalition members further to the left of his Socialist Party. NATO allies agreed to spend 2% of GDP on military expenditure after Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. But the alliance's plans for defending Europe and North America against a Russian attack hire investments of at least 3%. The aim now is to raise the bar to 3.5% for core defense spending on tanks, warplanes, air defense, missiles and hiring extra troops. A further 1.5% would be spent on things like roads, bridges, ports and airfields, so armies can deploy more quickly, as well as preparing societies for possible attack. Several allies have committed to reaching the new spending goal, even though other nations will struggle to find the billions required. Rutte had been due to table a new proposal on Friday, aimed at satisfying Spain and trying to break the deadlock. European allies and Canada want to end the standoff before the leaders meet with Trump on Wednesday. Poland and the Baltic countries, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania have already publicly committed to 5%, and Rutte said that most allies were ready to endorse the goal. But Spain isn't alone among NATO's low spenders. Belgium, Canada, and Italy will also struggle to hike security spending by billions of dollars. A big question still to be answered is what time frame countries will be given to reach an agreed-upon new spending goal. A target date of 2032 was initially floated, but Rutte said that Russia could be ready to launch an attack on NATO territory by 2030. Like and subscribe for more. Thanks.